Dear Angelo, Farrugia, thank you so much for the honor of joining us today at the International Symposium on Cultural Diplomacy and Religion in Rome. We have a few questions in order to hear your opinions on some issues. So first of all, what would be your definition of cultural diplomacy and how has it influenced your work?
Well, cultural diplomacy should encompass the fact that before you try to persuade somebody to come to you on the table, you have to understand that you have to have a good ear, you have to have the value of listening, irrespective of whether that person or the other persons are not in agreement with your religious beliefs, your political inclinations, or perhaps also some basic rights. You have to have the fact that cultural diplomacy should include that you should respect the rights of the minorities. You should not only respect, but you should give the equal respect to those who have different religious views, notwithstanding that you may think that your religious beliefs are better. This is the problem with what happens in various situations where violence is a result of different views about different religions. Look what's happening in Syria. The Sunni and the Shia. They are both Muslims, but there is infighting between the Muslims. So, in order to have peace, as I said in my paper earlier today, during this important symposium, is we cannot have peace in the Middle East, where we have been talking about the Middle East for the last 50 years, if you don't include the religious leaders on the table together with the politicians. Because the politicians generally keep out the religious leaders from talking about peace, from reaching reconciliation, from working on an exercise of understanding. It's because they have an interest in leaving the religious leaders away from the negotiating table, because there might be other interests. And this is why some politics may be wrong. And I gave the example of the invasion of Iraq. That was a wrong decision, because the people were not being fed the truth. And the value of peace is based on the truth, on being honest, on being transparent. And so that's why I gave the example of my country, for example, where we were on a constitution, and the constitution is the highest law of the land, where we declared ourselves not only independent, not only a republic, a small republic in the Mediterranean, but we declared also the value of being neutral. Not because we don't like the Americans, or at that time we don't like the Soviet Union, when it was before the fall of the wall, of the Iron Wall. But we said, we are in the Mediterranean, in the center of the Mediterranean. We want to behave like a bridge between Europe and the Mediterranean, and we have to have a credibility. And how come a state? How come a group of persons? How come a group of non-religious or different religious believers come to talk to you if you are going to take sides from the very beginning? So we don't take sides, but we try to understand everyone. So that is a very important factor. Of course, not every country can be neutral. I mean, I can't imagine certain countries to be neutral after many years of taking sides. But at least you have to have some countries, as was said during the symposium yesterday by the Austrian presentation, which he said how important it is, after I make my intervention, that in the European Union you will have more neutral countries. Because how can we understand the problem of the Middle East? How can we try to help the Arab Spring Revolution to be a success? If we can talk with the Islam Brotherhood of Islam, we can talk with the Sufis, we can talk with the neutral politicians, the other type of conservatives or liberal approach. We have to talk with everyone. And the same thing happened when there was the Libyan crisis. I mean, Malta was the only country in the world that gave shelter to everyone, including the Americans, including the British. We hospitalized all the wounded, notwithstanding if they were fighting for Gaddafi or against Gaddafi. Why? Because we are neutral. And this is reconciliation. This is peace. This is what we call about cultural diplomacy. So the definition, your question about how you define cultural diplomacy, it should include all these values. It's hard, but if you work hard, and that's what I said, we are working for peace. If you want to work for peace, you have to have you have to listen, because many of the conflicts are as a result that people did not listen. And you have to fight violence by nourishing peace. And irrespective of whether the groups who are fighting pertain to some religion, which you might not be popular with your views, but you have to make sure that you share what Pope Francis has been saying. We have to have a communication with everyone, like talking with a child. When you talk to a child, you don't ask him, are you a Muslim? Are you a Catholic? Are you a Jew? You talk to a child. That is how we should behave with each other, as if we talk with children. This is the same thing that what Christ said in the Bible. Let the children come and talk to me.
Thank you very much. We have another question connected to this. How do you view the role of cultural diplomacy in the future?
Yeah, I think this institute, which this conference has been organizing, is doing a great job. And I think cultural diplomacy has to be high on the agenda with various political conferences. And, it should be taken more seriously by many countries, and I think we should contribute more, because much of the peace agreements were reached because cultural diplomacy played a very important role.
Thank you.
Thank you. Why do you think that interfaith dialogue is important in society?
Yeah, interfaith is important because in any given situation, when you analyze any problem that is present in our life, any conflict, there is a problem of faith which is being questioned. Take any situation. So in order to ensure that you instill peace there, you have to have the ability to bring those people, the leaders, especially the religious leaders, to come together and talk and discuss. And you have to be mature enough when you are negotiating with these people, like the Saint Egidio. Here we are in the garden of Saint Egidio. Yeah. This is what they do. This is what we have been doing also in Malta with various situations. You have to have these religious leaders, especially, and I said this in my paper, when the government is being questioned for many things. You may have a legitimate government, but his actions may be questioned. He may be considered as illegitimate or without moral authority. And when that is absent, then it is even important to have the moral authority being exercised by the religious leaders. And there's where interfaith comes.
Thank you. As a political leader, how do you think religion and politics influence each other in Malta?
Yeah, I am a strong believer that when you are in government, you have to have the separation between church and the state. But it's important to hear also what the church has to say. So in order to have a mature discussion about any given situation, ethical, moral situation, notwithstanding that the government, because it has the majority of the members of parliament in parliament, is the one who has the authority to enact laws. But before it enacts laws, it should also have a good ear to listen to what the people in high places, in religious leaders, have to say. And then, of course, the good sense has to prevail.
Right. Thank you so much for being here with us today. It was an honor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.